Okay, so on your quiz, some of your questions are multiple choice, some are short answer, some are calculator, some are no calculator. Okay, so the only ones that are calculator are the little ones that say calculator beside it. So if it doesn't say that, then it's on the no calculator section. Okay, so the calculator section is very short. So whenever you're finding a minimum or maximum value, remember that that just means that you are finding the what of the quadratic? The vertex. Okay, so to find the vertex, you can always do the opposite of b over 2a. Okay, so for this one, when you did the opposite of b over 2a, you got 1 over 2 times 2, which is 1 over 4. The way that the answers are written is in that form f of h equals k. All right, so you're looking for the ones that have 1/4, so you can automatically cross those out. And then if you know that x is 1/4, how can you find what the output is? Yeah, you're going to plug it back in. So for that, you just have to know your order of operations. So do you do 1/4 squared first, or you do 1/4 times 2 first? You have to do the squared. Okay, so you square the top, you square the bottom. 1 squared is 1, 4 squared is 16. 2 over 16 reduces to what? 1/8, so it's 1/8 minus 1/4 plus 3. So you can get a common denominator for all of them. What would the common denominator be? 8. So if you want the denominator to be 8, you times 2 times 2. You want the denominator to be 8 times 8 times 8. Okay, so this is 1 minus 2 plus 24 all over 8. Okay, so then your final answer is what? 23 over 8. Okay, so your answer is going to be A. All right, and then this one, it does say to find the vertex of the given parabola. You can see that this is written as your HK, written as your point. Those are your answers. This is going to be the same thing. It's the opposite of B over 2A. So you get -3. Okay, with that alone, you can bring it down to these two answers, and then you're going to plug that in. So you have to know how to use your order of operations here. -3 squared is 9, so it's -9 plus 18 plus 10. Okay, you know that this is 9. 9 plus 10 is 19. So E is going to be your final answer. Okay. All right, for 3, determine the end behavior. So if the degree is odd, then the ends are going to go in opposite directions. And then you have a positive leading coefficient, which means it goes up on the right. Okay, so you're going to have to make sure, you're just going to have to check each one. This one's saying that it's going down as x goes to -infinity, and it's going up on the right. So see how this one is going up on the right? So you know that's going to work. This is, this one, do you see this one has both of them on the left? So that's not going to work. Okay, this one, it's saying that it's going up on the left and going up on the right. So that could be a possibility. This one is saying that it's going up on the left and going down on the right. So that can't be it. Okay, and then this one is also saying it's going up on the right. So if it's going up on the right, y goes to positive infinity as x goes to positive infinity. If they're opposite, then y goes to -infinity as x goes to -infinity. So you just have to find which one has this, and it is A. Okay, so this one is saying that it goes down on the right and up on the right. That can't be true. Okay. All right, and then this one you can use your calculator to find how many max and min it has. So when you graph it on your graphing calculator, you should get this. Okay, so you should have 1 maxima and 2 minima. Okay, so you're graphing that in your y equals. Okay, if you didn't get that right, if you want to check it now and ask me some questions, you can do that. Okay, and then 5, this is without your calculator. So you have to use the factor theorem. The factor theorem says if this is a factor, okay, then the remainder is going to be what? 0. And then if you want, you could also use the rational zeros theorem. You could do the factors of 4 on the top, factors of 1 on the bottom, and that could eliminate some answers too. These are your possible rational zeros. Okay, so 1's a possibility, 4's a possibility, 2's a possibility, but this 1/4 is actually not even a possibility. Okay, and then you can just guess and check. So for this one, your C is 1, here your C is 4, here your C is -2, here your C is -1, and you can go in any order that you want to. Okay, so you have to line up your coefficients, bring down 1. Okay, so you could try 1, this would be 7, 7 times 1. Okay, and then you can see this isn't going to be 0, so that can't work. And then you can just keep on guessing and checking. Okay, sorry, I'm going to try -1. So you have -1, 5, -5, 4, -4, 0. Once you find the one that has the remainder of 0, that is going to be your answer. Okay, so it's going to be B. Okay, so the other ones you should not get a remainder of 0. All right, now for 6, you're finding the minimum and the maximum value of the function. I'm going to show you some shortcuts too when you have your multiple choice. One thing that you can do right away is you can find the x coordinate of your vertex. You do want this in standard form. So you could do the opposite of b over 2a. -4 over 8 is -1/2. So right away, you can eliminate the ones that don't have -1/2, which is going to be this one. Okay, and then this is one where we've talked about you group them together, and then you factor out the a value, and then you complete the square. Okay, now look at your a value. Your a value is what? 4. This is going to stay outside of the parentheses when you do this. What's the only one that has it on the outside of your parentheses? Yes. Okay, so it is going to be that because none other have that. Now, let's say your quiz is a little trickier and there's another one that has the 4 on the outside. Okay, then what you would do is you would do, this is half of b squared, so 1/2 squared, which is 1/4, and then remember, you have to distribute. So 4 times 1/4 is what? 1. So if you're adding 1 here, you have to subtract 1 here. This is where you get the -6, okay, which is your value on the outside, your output. And then when you factor, you're just going to drop that 1/2 down. Okay, so I'm going to write this nicer. Squared -6 equals your f of x. Okay, so those are little tricks that you can use to help you do problems faster. Okay, you know that that's going to be your a value. Okay, now for this one, it says find the coordinates of all the local extrema. That means your local max and your local mins. Okay, and then for this one, okay, this is not an extrema. This is a 0. The only one that's a minimum is here, and that's at 0, -3. Okay, so that's your local min, and so your only answer is going to be C. It's not this. This is a 0. Okay, it's continuing to go down. Okay, it's a very slight downward motion. Okay, this is a 0, not an extrema, not a local max or min. All right, and then for 8, this is your rational zeros using your rational zeros theorem. So remember, this is P over Q, where P is the factors of your constant, and Q is the factors of what? Yep, your leading coefficient. Okay, so your leading coefficient is 2, so 1 and 2 for 10. You have plus or minus 1, 2, 5, and 10. Okay, so you're going to have all of these values, the plus or minus 1, 2, 5, and 10, and then you have to divide them all by 2. So it's going to be 1/2, 2 divided by 2 is 1, 5 over 2, and then 10 over 2. Okay, so the only one that has all of those is E. Okay, you can see like this one has 1/8, this one has 1/7, this one has 1/7. Okay, this one has 3 in it, so those are all no's. Okay. All right, and then 9 says find all of the rational zeros of the polynomial. You can use your calculator on this one. So the rational zeros are going to be your x-intercepts. So your work for this one can be as simple as drawing what this goes through. Your graph looked like this, right? And it crossed through 4. 4 is your only x-intercept, so you should have A. All right, and then for 10, find all rational zeros using what? Factoring. Okay, so on your quiz, I changed this one to a short answer question. So you have to factor. Okay, you're not using synthetic division. You have to factor completely. So when you're factoring, you want to take out the GCF if there is one. If there's no GCF and there's no special pattern, you can guess and check. So what are you going to multiply that's going to give you x to the 4th? X squared times x squared. So this is what you have to have. What times what multiplied by what number is going to be 64, but add to 20? Can't be 8 and 8. Okay, so let's go down the list. So 1 and 64, 2 goes in there 32 times. We know 3 won't go in there. 4 goes in there how many times? 16. Okay, and then because this is plus and this is minus, they both have to be minuses. A negative times a negative is a positive. So you have 4 and 16. Now this is the part that people forget, so don't let this be you, because part of the points I build in is that you can get to this next step. What is special about both of these? Yep, they're perfect squares, so this should be x plus 2, x minus 2, x plus 4, x minus 4. Okay, so this is your factored form of the polynomial, and then you have to find the zeros. So it'll be -2, 2, -4, and 4. Okay, which is going to give you D. All right, so if you found that a different way, make sure that you write down how to factor. Don't forget the difference of 2 squares. Okay, so we have to know that pattern. All right, and then I am going to do the work on the back. Okay, so it says to express the quadratic function in standard form, so I just used that because that's what the book used. Okay, so you are going to make sure that you use your standard form, which is where you can pull out the vertex, using the completing the square method. Okay, and then you have to find its a maximum or minimum value, and then label that as a maximum or a minimum. Okay, so for number 1, you're going to group the terms together. And notice it says completing the square method, so you have to know how to fill this out properly. It's always, you have to complete this perfect square trinomial. So you're filling this in with b over 2 squared. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. What's 3 squared? 9. So when you are doing this, remember, if you're adding 9 to balance the equation, you have to subtract it. So these should always be opposites. Okay, and then once you have that, now you factor. This is going to factor into x plus 3 squared. Don't forget this. I feel like in the past, some people forgot to factor that properly. Okay, and then this is going to be your standard form, so that's going to be part of it. But please double check that you are finding all parts. So it says find its maximum or minimum value, and then write this value in function notation. So you know that your vertex is -3, -12. Do you guys remember how to write that in function notation? Yep, so f of -3 equals -12, and then we just have to label it as a max or a min. Do you guys remember what tells you that? Yep, so what's your a value? 1, and so if it's positive, it's going to open up, and you're going to have a minimum. Okay, so can you guys make sure that you boxed in all of those? Because I feel like there were a lot of directions with those type of problems. All right, and then for number 2, you have to find the maximum height when they give you y equals 80t minus 16t squared. Okay, so keep in mind, anytime you're trying to find a maximum, you can use this to find your x-coordinate of your vertex. Okay, so it's x equals the opposite of b over 2a. If they say what's the maximum height, and what time does the maximum occur, okay, the x value is going to be the time, because the time is your input, and then your output is going to be your height. It says its height in feet after t seconds is given by this equation. Okay, so then when you do this, remember that you want to put this in standard form, or can you guys find your a and your b this way without writing it in standard form? Because if you can, that's what I would do, just to save time when you're writing. So it's this is a no calculator one, right? Oh, it is. Thanks. So if you have the opposite of b over 2a, you have -80 over -32. Okay, and then you can just divide that. You're going to get 2.5 seconds, and then yes, you can use your calculator for that. And I actually think it's quicker to do this. I think it's quicker to do this and then plug it in with your calculator to do the opposite of b over 2a. Should we race? You guys graph it? Should I do that part? And then from there, once you know that it's 2.5, you're just going to plug it back in. So 80 times 2.5 minus 16, 2.5 squared. And you can plug all of that into your calculator to find the output, which is what? 100. Okay, so make sure that you read the question. So your maximum height is 100 feet. And this occurs after 2.5 seconds. So they ask you for 2 things. So on your quiz, you'll have 2 different spaces. Make sure you understand which one's the height and which one's the time. Okay? Know what your input is, know what your output is. All right, and then you're dividing using long division. How did that one go? Okay, and then do you guys have any questions about the alternate form? All right, so we have 15x cubed plus 15x squared plus 22x, And then you can decide if you want to put in your placeholders either for here or on the outside. But you're always going to start with the first and the first. 15 divided by 3 is 5. X cubed divided by x squared is x. 5x times 3x squared is 15x cubed. And then just be careful with this. 5x times 4 is 20x. So I'm going to line that up here. Did you guys remember to line them up with your like terms? Because if not, yours might be a little off. And then make sure that you write this step out properly. So you have to change the signs. This is going to come down. This is going to be 2x, and then you start your process over again. So now you're looking here. 15 divided by 3 is positive 5, so make sure you use the plus. So then you get 15x squared. 5 times 4 is 20. And again, you're going to switch the signs here. So you should have 2x, because that just drops down, minus 20. Okay, you can stop here because the degree is now less than the degree of the divisor. So your final answer should be 5x plus 5 plus 2x minus 20 over 3x squared plus 4. And it needs to be in that form. How'd you guys do with lining up your terms? Good? Okay. You could also like put plus 0x so that you remember to put that middle term there. That would be fine. You know that you stop when the degree is less than the degree of divisor. All right. Okay, and then for number 4, you're dividing using synthetic division. And you're writing your answer in an alternate form. Okay, so make sure if you have any placeholders that you do that. Okay, so you should have 2, 11, negative 30, negative 162. Okay, and then if you have x minus 3, make sure you set that equal to 0. Okay, so then 2 times 3 is 6. 17 times 3, I would do 30 and 21 to get 51. Okay, that's going to give you 21. 51 minus 30 is 21. And then 21 times 3 will be 63. And then so you should get negative 99. Is that what you guys got? Yeah. Okay, so then when you're writing out your final answer, this is your remainder, your number, your x squared. So your final answer is 2x squared plus 17x plus 21, and then you can do minus 99 over x minus 3. Okay, and then let's go to number 5. Okay on that last one? All right, so use synthetic division and the remainder theorem to evaluate. When you are evaluating, if you have p of 1/3, remember, your answer, your solution, is your remainder for this. So sometimes people get confused because number 4, you're doing division. This you are evaluating. Okay, so your answer should be a number for this. So you have 1, -2, 3, 4, and then if it's 1/3, that's what you're going to use here. All right, so let's do this one together because I think with the fractions, we could all use some reminders on that. So if you are trying to combine -2 and 1/3, okay, you can think of this as -6/3. Isn't that -2? Okay, so then this would be -5/3. Okay, and then when you multiply, this is the other part people forget. You multiply 1 times -5 to get -5, but what's the denominator? 9. Guess what people often put? 3. Okay, so because you're going from like adding to multiplying. So make sure you multiply the denominators. Okay, and then if you want this denominator to be 9, 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, 9 times 3 is going to be 27, so that's going to be your numerator. Okay, so 27 minus 5 is going to be 22 over 9. Okay, and then you're going to multiply. Okay, and then, so you have 22 on top, you have 27 on the bottom, and then your last step is just to get your new numerator. So if you're doing 27 times 4, have you guys started doing like 20 times 4 is 80, 7 times 4 is 28 to help with that? Yeah, that's fine too. You can just do it out the way that you used to do it, like 28 and then carry the 2, that's fine. Okay, and then you have 108 plus 22, and that's going to give you what as your numerator? Yep, so, and you can leave your answer just like that. Okay, you could, some of you write it as a mixed number? Okay, so then this is your answer. P of 1/3 equals 130 over 27. Okay, so if you're struggling with the fractions, I would try some like this to make sure you're practicing those. Okay, those are ones you really just need to take your time on because you know how to do them. It's just you need to slow down and do that step by step, okay? All right, and then for 6, you're using synthetic division and the remainder theorem to evaluate P of 2. So again, your solution is your remainder. Okay, so if you have P of 2, you want to watch out for placeholders. When do you use a placeholder? Yeah, if you have x to the 3rd and then just x, you have to put a 0 in there for your x squared. So will you guys check your coefficients? Because this was x to the 5th, there was no x to the 4th. You had x cubed, no x squared, and then you had an x, and then you have the constant term. Okay, so you have 16, add straight down. 32, add straight down. 39, multiply by 2, 78. 78, multiplied by 2, what did you guys get? 156, and then I started writing it this way because I didn't give myself enough room. Okay, and then you have 157. So if you're doubling 157, just double 150. What's 150 and 150? 300. And then if you double 7, 14. So it'll be 314 plus 9, 323. I would just add 10, subtract 1. Okay, so the way that you would write your answer is P of 2 equals 323. Okay, so unless it says synthetic division, you are going to make sure that your answer is your remainder. Yes. Oh yeah, this is the synthetic division and the remainder theorem to evaluate. Anytime it says evaluate, that's when you're going to use this value. If it says to write your answer in alternate form, that's when you are going to write it as your x squared with your remainder over your divisor. Okay, so this, do you see how this one says divide using synthetic division? So this one said divide, these say evaluate. That's going to be the difference. All right, and then for 7, find a polynomial of degree 3 with the given terms. You are going to write those in factored form. Okay, and then your polynomial, you can call it f of x, you can call it p of x. And then you're just going to FOIL. So you should have x squared minus 4 times x minus 4. And then guess what? You get to FOIL again. So then you'll get x cubed minus 4x squared minus 4x plus 16. Okay, so you're always writing those in factored form. Factored form is x minus c. All right, and then your last one, 8, says find all of the real zeros of the polynomial. Use the quadratic formula if you have to. Okay, and then for ones like 8, all your answers need to be exact. Okay, so for ones like 8, you're going to start by doing what? Yep, let's use our graphing calculator to plot your polynomial. You guys read me what it is. 3x to the 4th. 48x. Okay. All right, now when you graph it and when you are using your table to see what your zeros are, right, this is only going to give you your whole number 0. So you see the x-intercept is -3. Now this is x to the 4th, so we're going to have to do this a few different times. So we're going to write the coefficients, 3, 40, 28, -220, -75. Okay, so the x-intercept that we saw was -3, so this will be -9, 31. You guys can also use your calculator for this one, so you can use your calculator to find these numbers. That's perfectly fine. Multiply, you get 195, -25, yay. Okay, now here we have a cubic function, so we have to do this again. But were there any other whole numbers that were 0? No, so this is what you can do to help you. You can use the rational zeros theorem, right? You can do the P over Q, okay? So that can help you if you know that you have plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 3 on the bottom, okay? You might have some factors that have a denominator of 3. You could have a factor that has a rational 0 of 3. Okay, so, and then it's the factors of 75. So you have 1 in 75, 2 doesn't go in there. How many times does 3 go in there? 25 times. Okay, 4 doesn't, 5 goes in there. 15 times. Okay, so you could have 1/3 would be a possible fraction. You could have 5/3. No. Yep, but you have to find the other one to do your synthetic division. Oh yeah, yep, you could do that too. Is that what you did and then you saw the 0.3 repeating? Okay, so like when I'm looking at these, like I can see this one is a little bit more than 2, and see how this is less than 2, so that one wouldn't work. But see, you have the plus or minus 1/3. Doesn't this look like it could be negative 1/3? Yeah, so that's what I would try, and I know it's right if what happens. Yeah, if your remainder is 0. Good. So you're just dividing by negative 3. Divide by negative 3. And doesn't this work out pretty nicely? Very nicely. Okay, and then once you've done that, now you have a quadratic. This is your remainder, your constant, your x squared. And if you can't factor it, or if you don't want to factor it, right, because you have 75 there, you can just use your quadratic formula. Okay, the quadratic formula is always going to work. So you're going to do the opposite of b. Oh, do you guys want to know another hint too? Did you guys do this with this number? With these numbers? The quadratic formula with these numbers? Okay, I'm going to show you 2 ways. So opposite of b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac, and be careful with that. Because what's going to happen when you do negative 4 times 3 times negative 75? It's going to add. So 30 squared is 900. Okay, 4 times 3 times 75 is going to get you 900. Okay, so you're going to have negative 30 plus or minus the square root of 1800 over 6. And then you're going to have to simplify this. Okay, if you are trying to simplify, do you guys know that the square root of 900 is a perfect square? Because it's 9 times 100, and aren't both of those perfect squares? So if you're simplifying this, 1800, right, this is just 2 and 900. So it's negative 30 plus or minus, square root of 900 is 30, and then you're going to divide each of these by 6. You have to make sure you simplify this step. So you should have negative 5 plus or minus 5 root 2. Okay, did some of you notice something else you could do at this step? Yeah. Yeah, you can take out the GCF and you can divide by the GCF. So another way that you could do that is you could divide everything, because you're setting it equal to 0. So whatever you do to one side, you can do to the other. You divide them all by 3, then the numbers that you're going to be working with are going to be a lot smaller. So when you do the b squared minus 4ac, you're going to have a smaller root that you're going to have to work with. Okay, so it would be negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 200. What's the perfect square in 200? 100. So it would be negative 10 plus or minus 10 root 2 over 2. And again, you'd get negative 5 plus or minus 5 root 2. Okay, so I believe there are 4 questions on the calculator portion. So you guys will do the calculator portion first. Okay, and then you'll have one big answer sheet with everything on it. So you'll do the calculator portion, then you'll clear your calculator, put that in your bag, and then I will give you the second